Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rook community meeting for September 7th, 2021. We'll go ahead and get started after I share my screen here. Where did that option go? Share screen. And there we go. All right, I assume you can see my agenda window.
Yes.
Alrighty. Great. Well, a quick milestone update to start off with, as usual. For the 1.5 board, we can probably take this off the meeting notes for future. No other 1.5 releases are planned at this point. I don't know of any burning issues for 1.5 either. And people can always, of course, build, well, do their own builds if needed. But does anybody have any questions around 1.5? Let me just make sure there's nothing in the board active while we're at it. Yep, the board is empty. Okay, so moving on to the 1.6. Let's see, we just had a release for 1.6.9 about 2 weeks ago. And those releases now I think are slowing down. We have fewer fixes getting backported to 1.6. I think in a couple more weeks, it'd be good to have at least one more release for 1.6.10 and maybe even a .11 after that. But unless somebody knows a reason to, or a request to have a sooner release, we'll probably just make this a monthly cadence at this point, which would make it about the 23rd. And let me look at the board real quick to see if anything's happening there. And I think it's pretty empty as well. All right. So that's a quick review for 1.6. Any other thoughts on 1.6 releases? Okay, so 1.7 gets a little more interesting here. It's our, of course, currently active release. And we did the last patch release, I think almost 2 weeks ago already. So our bi-weekly release would be this coming Thursday. So we will plan on that. And I did not take a look at this board today. I'm sure there's plenty of things that need to be updated. There's some things in progress, reviews in progress. And of course, a number of things to do, which none of them should be urgent, or else they would be in the blocking release column. Let's see, are there any specific issues we need to talk about here? I'm just looking at the review in progress column. So we've got migration upgrade doc, NFS Rados spec to use NFS pool, annotation. Yeah, it looks like these are just the typical things that are in progress. Are there any specific issues that anybody wants to bring up for 1.7?
I have a question. So the next 1.7.4 will be end of this month, right? Because we are also planning for 3.4.1 next week from CSI point of view. We have proper fix.
So next week is the CSI release?
Yes.
Okay.
Next week, by end of next week.
Sure. So we've got 1.7.3 this week. So we're still at the biweekly cadence. So I think around September 23rd would be 1.7.4, where we could pick that CSI release up.
Okay.
If I'm thinking of the calendar right. Yeah, the 23rd's in 2 weeks from Thursday, I think.
Okay, one more question. What is the deprecation policy in Rook? Because CSI, we just announced a deprecation policy that N-1 releases won't be supported anymore. If you have 3.4, only 3.3 and 3.4 will be supported, not like 3.2, 3.1 and all.
Our deprecation policy for Rook releases, you're saying?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we've intentionally not really documented our deprecation policy, but the reality is that we have our latest 2 minor releases where we do patch releases for them. So right now that would be 1.7 and 1.6 still doing patch releases. And I can't remember the last time we did a patch release for N-2. So yeah, the reality is N-2 is not something we're generally supporting for upstream. We still try and answer questions and things and get people to help them through the upgrade process to make sure they can get on the latest releases. But we haven't officially deprecated. I think that unofficial policy at least has worked so far.
Okay, sounds good.
And on that topic, I guess CSI, you're looking at updating the minimum supported version.
Yes, I was thinking the same. So in 1.7, like maybe 1.7.4, we'll keep the minimum to 3.3. And so which is like minimum supported version from our side.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know how often people are honestly changing the default version of CSI that's installed with Rook. So hopefully most people wouldn't even notice the change in minimum version.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be good. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions about the 1.7 release cycle?
The release cycle, but not so much about the release cycle, but I just moved out some issues / features we had for 1.7. I felt like they were not really realistic to have them for 1.7. Essentially, all the dependence follow-ups, I have moved them to 1.8.
Yeah,
and I see Blaine agrees, so
yeah,
cool. I did the same for the cozy deployment, just because also the driver is in really alpha state anyways.
Yeah,
So,
I should probably check on it to make sure, but the last time I checked on it, which was I think last week or maybe the week before, the KEP itself had not been approved, which I think means that it's not yet in a in a Kubernetes version.
Okay. Right. Sounds good then. So, I was going to ask also, the stale bot, it looks like it was catching up with some of those issues you opened, Blaine. So we might need to add a flag to them so they don't get closed by the stale bot.
For the dependents?
The dependent ones. Yeah.
I also added the keep alive this morning on all of them.
Oh, okay. That's all.
So I did move them to 1.8 as well as adding the keep alive flag. So it's done.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, moving on to 1.8 discussion then. So yeah, the previous proposal was the first week of December for that release, just to make sure we get it out before the end of the year with holidays and things. I think that would still be a good thing to work with. Blaine, your comment on KubeCon China, so December 9th and 10th. So
yeah, there's a little bit of the note continues, like in the next page. Yeah, KubeCon China is December 9th and 10th. We could target trying to release by that KubeCon. I know we have often tried to release just before a KubeCon. However, it is a virtual only conference, which also means the talks have to be recorded like a month and change beforehand. So after writing that note, I was like, well, maybe that's actually not like the best thing to set as a thing that controls our target release, because we, the talk will be recorded like a good month beforehand anyway, before we know exactly what's going into 1.8 and what we've been able to make in.
Yeah, at the same time, I think, so if we're already shooting for the first week of December, and if it bleeds into the second week of December, like on the day of KubeCon or something, it would still be hopefully out by the time it releases. And yeah, as far as what to talk about in 1.8, I think we'd have to look at it when it's time to record.
Yeah.
And just see. But talking about the 1.8 release, I think that's close enough. That'd be good to shoot for.
Okay.
Good point. And that reminds me, I still need to get signed up for the KubeCon China Rook Talk. So I'll do that today. I think the deadline is coming up in the next week or so. Okay. And anything else on the 1.8 release? With that, moving on to the community topics and questions. So just a quick note to start off with, to follow up on build and release. I think our GitHub actions are still working really well, really happy with them. Thanks all again for all those efforts. And I don't think there's any reason to keep Jenkins around for builds, because 1.6 and 1.7 builds are on the GitHub actions now. We'll just maybe give it till after, till the end of the month, just to make sure we're not forgetting anything else. And then just turn it off for good. Any other thoughts around GitHub actions and all of that? All right.
No, but maybe yet another greatness coming from GitHub. Have you seen what they are doing with issues right now?
Not sure.
I have subscribed to like early like beta testers and things like this. So what's the link again? Yeah, I don't remember, like, but if you look up like GitHub issues, they're really like revamping the way you subscribe to issues and the way you manage issues with projects and sprints and things like this. So it's going to become much more like a task management, like even like Jira almost. And I think it looks super promising because obviously everything is really integrated into GitHub. I'm just really happy, I guess, that we never tried to use anything else than GitHub, because really what's coming is going to be really great.
Better.
Let me see if I can actually find something about
Yeah,
this.
that's
We
good.
can at least see some sort of a demo or what
GitHub
they're-
issues and project tracking is pretty basic, or has been. So this will be nice to have a little
It
better
is
track.
super basic for sure. So yeah, I'm just going to pass that in the chat. So it's github.com/features/issues. And yeah, it's looking quite promising. Just a small heads up, I guess.
Nice. Yep. Cool. We'll look forward to that. Alrighty. And then the next topic is separating backends from Rook core. So last time we talked about doing it and we made a bunch of progress. Blaine, do you want to cover where we are?
Yeah, we forked Rook into Rook Cassandra and Rook NFS, and in each of the forks disabled, well, completely stripped out the other backends. So Cassandra is only Cassandra and NFS is only NFS. There's no trace of Ceph or the other backend. And yeah, Travis really helped with the documents, and now the documentation landing page is for Rook is now the core and has Ceph, and then the backend can be selected from a dropdown, which looks really nice and works really nicely. Yeah, so I think with the upcoming 1.7.3 release, our goal is to make sure that Cassandra and NFS can release from those repos. We have a high degree of confidence that we can release from the Rook repo that has Ceph pretty easily. And then that will be the last release that we have synchronized between all of the backends. So when we eventually release 1.7.4, that will just be a Ceph release. Yeah, I think that covers all the updates. I don't, Travis, did I miss anything that you wanted to call out?
Right, yeah, I think you covered it. And just to emphasize, so this Thursday, we'll plan on the 1.7.3 from the 3 separate repos, right? Because they'll all be separate at this point. And so we still need to do a little work to like backport the GitHub actions and make sure they're all working in the release branches for the individual storage providers. But they're all working currently in master, so I'm optimistic it'll be pretty straightforward to just backport them and get them running there. Yeah, I think in my mind there's kind of a question going forward what will make sense for the versioning story, because it could be confusing if they sort of follow the same versioning but not really. So, but it'll really be up to each storage provider, which is how I think it always should have been. And this is the right thing, the right approach. Really, each storage provider gets its own release scheduled depending on timelines that people decide and whatever those requirements are. So I think it's good.
Yeah,
it'll just be a little different. And just to do a quick demo maybe of the help file changes. So if we go to rook.io, hopefully you can still
that's a
see
good
my
idea.
window. Yep. So you'll see before the documentation was just a link, but now you get a drop down when you mouse over and you get to pick, do you want documentation for Ceph or Cassandra or NFS? So the Ceph docs take you here. Now the help docs are just, the changes are actually only in master. So let me switch to the master view here for the Ceph docs. So you see it's pretty clear. Okay, this is for Rook Ceph documentation. So in master, we don't see the Cassandra or NFS items in the table of contents here. And I think, yeah, there's more to do to kind of reorganize the table of contents. And since it really can just focus on Ceph or each storage provider. So then a question.
Yeah, but this can wait when you're done, I guess. So.
Yeah, just another minute here. So if I look at the Cassandra docs, and in master, it's the latest that we'll have. So there's still, so it's all Cassandra. There are some common topics too around contributing and sort of general troubleshooting and architecture. But yeah, that's the main thing. The docs have separate landing pages and we can customize them for each storage provider. What was that, Seb?
Just, I guess, maybe nits. For example, in the Cassandra, maybe we can remove the prefix Cassandra Quick Start, Cassandra Cluster CRD and stuff, because we are already in the Cassandra page. So it's like a given.
Yeah, since it's over here in the drop down, hopefully it's still obvious and in the URL. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so, and I think the initial comment I had is that would it be more like helpful if we changed master and called this latest? I mean, whoever is not really familiar with GitHub and namings and stuff like that, so maybe using just latest would like be a bit clear for users that just know nothing about code and branch names and stuff like this. Just a small.
Yeah.
If we do that, we should also have a latest tag.
Oh, it's based out of the branches, literally based out of the branches then?
Yeah, we don't have a Docker
Oh.
Hub tab for latest. I don't think. I think we have like the master releases that have the like hash stuff on them, and then we have just the master tag that gets you whatever the latest one of those is.
Oh, I see. But then this particular link cannot be removed, but still like renamed, but still point to master.
something like
Yeah,
that.
I think so. We could just, yeah, we can just have both. We can have as many tags as we want for like Docker images.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just for clarity. We don't have to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's just, we would also want to take the step of making sure that the like documentation matches the images that are available to users also.
Okay.
And I think we want a latest link to point to the latest supported release, like 1.7. And master, yeah, we should rename it something to like, what's the right thing, head or next release or something.
Like development, maybe.
Or development, yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I like that. Mhm.
As an unrelated note, I did, while you were doing the website demo, I, out of curiosity, I took a look on my phone, and the like mobile web, or like, yeah, the mobile experience of the documentation also works pretty well. Like there were no weird issues with not being able to like find the right documentation link. So that's also a plus.
Oh, good. Okay, you can easily find the different storage providers in the dropdown. Then,
Yeah, yeah. It's not a dropdown. It's just a sort of, it renders into a tree-like structure, but it's still, it's very easy to use on the like mobile web page.
Okay, good to know. I haven't tried it. Yep. Okay. Anything else on the separate backends then that we need to discuss? Questions, comments? All right, that sounds good for that topic then. And the last item on the agenda, Jürgen Shaban, so you have a demo on migration of Flex and entry volumes. Looking forward to prototype is ready.
Hey everyone, am I audible?
Yes, sounds good.
Sure. So sometimes back we had a meeting where we discussed that why we need the migration steps for Flex and entry volumes to CSI, and we also looked at the manual process that we could do for achieving the same. And now we have a prototype ready, which I can show a short demo on how it works. Let me share the screen.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. And hopefully you have a share option.
Sure. Let me
Great.
know when the terminal is visible.
Yep, we see it.
Okay, so basically just a quick overview. So this is a Golang project that has we have created a binary and copied it inside the toolbox pod. So where we are running it, we are providing two parameters that are basically the source storage class and the destination storage class. The source storage class being here an example of flex volume storage class, and destination will be a CSI in this example. And below we can see that we have the Rook Ceph agent, which with the help of which we have deployed a flex PVC bound to the storage class. And we also prerequisite, we have to create the CSI storage class beforehand so that the tool can use it. So I'll play the recording. So what we are trying to do is since we have the flex volume PVC up, we are trying to create a pod and write some data to it so that we can verify if our migration is successful. We are just writing some things. I wrote a file migration there, and we then proceed to delete the pod because in the migration process it involves a downtime, so the PVC will be deleted for some time. And now we can see the storage class is currently for RBD PVC. It's Rook Ceph block, which is a flex storage class. And now what we'll do is we'll start the tool. It will run the steps required, like exchange the backend images, set the reclaim policy retain, do all the steps. Apologize for the ugly logging here. So just now migration is successful. And now we can see the PVC, the same name is in bound state. We have to use the same name. Suppose if some application is using it, so in the front, it will not change anything. And as we can see in the storage class, it's now using the CSI storage class, and it's now bound using the CSI storage class. Now we'll verify if the data also got migrated along with the PVC. So let's just quickly create the pod again and go into the mount path, and we can validate that, okay, our file came through and now migration was successful. So that's pretty much the demo for our small prototype that we had for the migration tool. This is a very quite initial prototype, and we are yet to have some many stability improvements here and there, so that because since it is a very critical process and people might lose data if we do it incorrectly. So we are planning to add various steps, like Madhu also suggested a step of adding a rollback operation. That if something goes wrong, we just make them roll back to the stage where they were earlier, and many other small subtle things. So this initial prototype, wanted to share with you all and get your thoughts.
I
Yeah, looks good. Go ahead, Blaine.
yeah, I guess first of all, that was really quick. I think that's going to be really good for users. I think yeah, we've been like in your explanations of this throughout like all of the planning and demos before, we've known that there's going to be some amount of like downtime for applications, which is good and is a good thing to also tell users. I can imagine that there are going to be many users who want to keep the same storage class name. So imagining that like for their users, an administrator wants to keep the same storage class name that their users, maybe they have a large user base and their users are like used to always specifying the same like storage classes. I want to make sure that we at least have a documented process for how administrators can keep the same storage class name using this tool, even if it involves running the tool twice, like once to go to an intermediate like CSI dash the storage class name, and then migrating like from that storage class name to what the original one was. But I think that's going to be an important thing for some administrators.
Yeah, and also we wanted to, like, since we have the tool ready, so in our last discussion we in the end we decided that once we have the tool ready and we see how the tool works, then we can decide the a home for the tool. And so I think we can discuss that now so that we can progress on that more quickly. And since I think we have people from CSI and Rook too, like from CSI, we have Madhu and Yuga, and yeah, from Rook, we have all the people required. So I think we can discuss about the home for the migrations. So
Real quick
Blaine,
before we talk about the home for it, I just want to go back to the question maybe Blaine had, or the comments. Yeah, I think that another scenario similar to what Blaine said of having the same CSI or storage class name, I think, what if the previous storage class doesn't exist? Do we require the storage class to exist, or could you just have a PV and say, I want to convert this PV from Flex to CSI? Would that work, right? Or are we saying we require the storage class? That's my question.
so only thing you need storage class is to list the PVCs belong to the storage class. Either like if you can label your PVCs, we can go with label selectors. This is only to list the PVCs which are belong to the Flex driver basically.
Okay, so
Yeah,
if there's some other
that's
way
fine.
to enumerate them, that's all. Or if we had an option to only convert a single PV instead of all of them, that would also, it sounds like that would make it possible.
Yeah, someone has to write a script to get the PVs and then call the tool with that as an input parameter, or like they can patch all the PVCs with some labels, so that the label can be a parameter to this tool. So then like the tool will list the PVCs with the particular labels and then migrate it to the CSI storage class.
Sure.
That solves the purpose, I think.
That also a really good suggestion. And in the future, we can do multiple things like migrating all PVCs in a namespace, or as you mentioned, adding labels, and we can migrate either one PVC or multiple PVCs at the same time, recording an application. And of that storage class name, yes, Lane, we can do that. That is definitely a good suggestion. And we can keep an intermediate CSI storage class name and then quickly get it to the same storage class. So that also I think can be done.
I think it's good to have like more parameters. So either it could be a storage class PVC, or it could be a label or a namespace. So based on whatever the parameter is going to pass, based on that, it lists the PVCs and then recreate it on the CSS storage class.
Yeah, I guess I think that's a really good point, Travis. I think there are, is like Rook, I think supports running both CSI and flex volume. So there may be administrators who already have like taken a storage class, for example, that used to be flex volume and modified it so that it now is a storage class that is CSI. And so they may have a lot of older legacy PVs that were created from the same storage class. So we'll just call it storage class like A, I guess, that are flex volume and may have new PVs for the storage class A that are CSI. We probably want to consider that may be a scenario that exists. And I don't know if we can figure out whether a PV was created with CSI or not, but we probably want to like be able to inspect the PV and determine whether it is flex volume or whether it is like an in-tree driver without the user like specifying it, if that's not currently already possible, so that if this like fails halfway through an operation, will also be good so that we don't double migrate PVs.
I have a question, which I'm not going to say more of a philosophical question, but it feels to me that the tool moves a PV from A to B. So you could say migrate from that storage class to that storage class. How is that really related to Flex and CSI at the end of the day? Isn't that just a PV migrator? Because what, like, I'm sure the tool could also migrate a CSI PV from set CSI, from a storage class onto another one, right?
Yes. Basically, since we are doing what we are doing is we are retaining the PV of the say flex volume, and we are retaining the PV, so the backend image also gets retained, and we are deleting the PVC of flex. So later on, what we do is in the backend, the image that we have of flex, we instead of that we rename it to we create a same name PVC with CSI, so that the metadata is generated with the help of CSI. And then what we do is we rename the image created by Flex to CSI. So it kind of manipulates CSI to look like it's its own image, and it picks up the image created by a Flex volume because it has the name which it generated. So basically, that's how the tool is working in the background.
And one more thing, like like moving from one CSS storage class to another could be a problematic for encryption for future. because in the namespace where PVC is created, we have the tokens to connect to KMS and all. So
Yeah, no, I
we
guess
really, only thing is like only the PVC object will be recreated another namespace. The PV will remain as it is, even the backend RPD images. We don't need to touch those things in this case.
And also, what's the difference, or is there any difference in implementation between converting from Flex or the in-tree drivers? Right? Is it the same process for either one?
Yes, it's the exact same process.
Yes.
Not
Right.
even a variable change.
Yeah.
Only
fine.
thing is like the way you inspect the PV object. For entry, it's a different spec, and Flex is a different spec. That's the only difference.
Yeah, that's nice.
so. At the end, it's really moving any PV that is not ZCSI to ZCSI.
For
Yes.
RBD, it is exactly same. Yeah.
Okay.
CFFS, it's completely a different problem because we need to still figure out how to mount and move the data, because previous FFS was without sub-volumes and all. So volume is a newly introduced concept. We need to see and how to do that one also.
Yeah, so the prototype is still just all around the RBD conversion and not ZFS, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I wonder how many ZFS conversions will need to support. I mean, it's just less common. They're less common in the first place. RBD is more common. And with the Flex driver, I mean, I think it was just static provisioning for ZFS, if I'm remembering right.
Yes, there is no
Right.
PVPVC objects over there. It's really difficult also to see how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe if we can just document how to do FFS, ZFS, I wonder if we just focus on RBD, if that would be acceptable. Yeah, it might be good to see what feedback we can get from the community on it as well. But anyway, if we're just documenting on our upstream issues in GitHub and have design documents upstream, people can hopefully see and comment there anyway. So, okay.
Yeah, and just to throw more ideas around the tool, which I'm sure are already planned, but just in case, somehow it's some sort of a scary tool to run as well. So the more verbosity we can get, the better, as well as potentially a dry run would be nice, just to see, hey, what is this tool is going to do? Because it's not really the type of thing you want to test on I mean, you could always test on a dummy volume, but it's just good to have some sort of a dry run mode where you see what the tool is going to do before you run it.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's why like.
Go ahead.
Nothing much like that. I was saying that's why we need proper testing and the CI, and yeah, we need to test that properly. Yeah, I agree on that.
Yes, and we are also planning to from now onwards, since we have a working prototype, we are planning to have a proper CI first and then continue our contributions on the same later. And we'll in future we'll have multiple jobs for the same for migration and testing, so that does not happen and it
For
does
the
not
different
postpone.
scenarios, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, that's why I
Rollback is a key over here. So if something goes wrong in between, like kubectl or like kube APIs are not responding properly, things become scary.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, not so much of a rollback, but maybe just resume is enough, I guess. But I mean, the running back is essentially running the two rivers, right?
Yes. Kind of resuming from where you're.
So
But
you just
the
need to
thing is like,
resume use it to resume, I
You need
guess.
to remember the things like whatever you have deleted or something like that. We should have some database kind of thing.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, rollback is a hard problem. So yeah, before we try and support rollback, if we can just support resume, yeah, that hopefully will. It's a much simpler problem to resume than to roll back, so that might be a good place to start before we try.
That's right, especially for a stateless tool.
Right. Kind of like the operator, I guess. You know, we always just try and let's just do it again. And but if we need some state because we're deleting or renaming, I guess we'll have to see about that.
Yeah, even to the point where I don't see why we would need rollback, because I mean, you can always run it reverse if you really want to do some kind of a rollback. But honestly, implementing the rollback might be just too much of a headache. Where resume seems really sufficient if we were really planning on migrating anyways. Like you have volumes that have been migrated already, so just continue, just resume.
Yeah, but in the case like if you have deleted the PVC and you somehow like tool got crashed, but you don't know which PVC you have to roll back also, right? I mean to resume also, right? Because the whole object is gone.
And the issue also will be like, suppose as Travis mentioned earlier, that they don't have the storage class for flex. So provisioning volume with flex again for them, that might also be a thing that we need to think on.
And if the tool can also do some internal retries before giving up, like, oh, if the kube API is just flaky for a few seconds, let's just retry it a few times. That will help. But also, I mean, for resuming, maybe we just need some additional arguments that take specific PV names or image names so we can resume instead of trying to maintain some state in the tool. If we're just logging sufficiently in case of there's a problem, well, maybe they need to dig through the logs and give parameters back to the tool, and that might just be sufficient. Not perfect, but if there's if there's some way to recover from it, I think we just don't need to automate all of it, because hopefully the failures will be rare.
Yeah, I think it should be possible.
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess in the design doc that we started back with the original prototype, I think there were a bunch of questions around that would be good to answer and have a recommendation. Well, do you feel like you have an idea after this prototype about where it makes sense for the tool to live? Do you have a recommendation? Should we go back to the design doc and answer some of those questions before we try and decide where the tool lives? I can't remember what those questions were now. It's been a while. But what are your thoughts around where the tool should live?
Any thoughts, like Madhu, question?
Is it question for me?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Uh,
I think
for everyone.
the question was directed to Jörg or Subhan, right?
Right. Yeah, you've been in it. Do you have a recommendation yet, or should we, take it offline and go back to the design doc and think about those questions again?
So, like, for me,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No. I personally think that it makes more sense to keep it out of Rook and in Ceph. The reason being that I suppose if some users are facing some issue in migrating entry volumes to Ceph CSI, so they'll unnecessarily create issues in Rook, which we might not want, because we just concern about migrating flex volumes to CSI, and we don't care here about how we migrate entry because we don't support them. And many other points, like lifetime of the tool will be more outside, as it supports both entry as well as flex volume. So users from both can come directly and get the migration done, since CSI also standalone can use the tool for its migration.
Yeah,
and
when you say
And
out of Rook and out of Ceph, where is it then?
no,
It should be in Ceph, right?
he means
no,
Yeah.
I said height of Rook in Ceph.
Oh, I thought you said out of Rook and Ceph. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe out of Rook
My
Ceph.
bad.
Sorry. Yeah, okay.
My bad.
It
Okay.
makes more sense to keep it in Ceph instead of Rook, because it also has some dependency on reading the config map for the CSI and all. Because that's
And we
something
say, when we
CSI
say
requires.
in Ceph, we're talking about a repo under the Ceph org, right? Ceph /
I think so,
CSI
yes.
migration tool, right?
Yes.
Right. And the other possibility, I don't know, in my mind at least, is, well, we're always converting to Ceph CSI, right? So would it make sense as part of the Ceph CSI repo? I don't know that it has to be. I'm just asking, would that make sense?
It would be a more burden for CSI. So I think best would be to keep it in Ceph, so anyone can migrate it to Ceph CSI or even in Rook. Because so the project will have more visibility if you keep it in Ceph. So have own documentation, own CI. Because if you keep it in Ceph CSI, it would be really hard to maintain for us also.
Right. Okay, yeah, if we can go back to the design doc, then let's answer these questions. Let's say our recommendation is a new repo under Ceph, and that's where we currently see it. Yeah.
And I see like there's a similar requirement in Kubernetes upstream also. Like they also are looking for some tools for entry at least. So if we keep outside of any repo, it will be more visible. So yeah, it will be like
Yeah.
good for the tool to have more users so that it becomes better. Yeah.
And it will have its own release cadence. You don't need to depend on Ceph CSI or Rook to have it released. So anyone can download and add the binary and then can use it also.
Right. And then I think we'll just want some integration tests, for example, in Rook that would say, well, let's convert Flex to CSI. And then, yeah, so there's just other ways to integrate.
Yeah.
Once we get a build from the tool, we can include it in our group build and then consume it from the toolbox in those tests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It may also be good to have an integration test in the Ceph CSI repository also, especially to make sure that incoming changes to Ceph CSI aren't going to break the tool. That's like something I've seen with other CI work when dealing with multiple repositories that all have to work together. It's good to make sure that each repository is at least testing a like small amount of the integration. So I think the Ceph CSI repository should also have a CI test that will verify that a new change to Ceph CSI isn't going to break the migration tool.
Yes, like if you can write a sample like GitHub action, so same can be reused in Ceph CSI and Rook also to validate it.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thanks.
Okay. Well, sounds good. So we'll follow up on the design doc then and get this going.
Yeah, we will try to address those questions. Yeah.
Thanks for the demo, and go ahead, Blaine.
Oh, I just had a kind of continuation from when we were talking about kind of selecting different inputs for the tool, like realizing that we probably, like we don't necessarily want just the storage class name. From a like administrator perspective, I think it's really easy for administrators in most cases to produce a list of names of PVs given various selectors. Like if I'm like, I want all PVs in this namespace, it's very easy for me to do that on my own right now. So I think the kind of like base input that we want for this tool is a list of PV names. We also want a default case that is something like all PVs in the cluster. But the real value add for like administrators is going to be any more complex selectors that they would need in sort of inside information about how the PVs are labeled if they want to select something like, I want to only do flex volume PVs, like something like that. They aren't going to know off the top of their head, and they might not be able to figure out even like from inspection, how do I determine what is a flex volume PV versus a CSI PV or an entry PV? So I think we should consider like, there are a lot of things administrators can do and can query and can select that are very easy for them to do already, that we actually don't need to focus on doing those things, in my opinion. The things that we really should focus on are some of the tools administrators are going to want for selecting inputs that they aren't going to have the knowledge to do themselves. And anything that we do where it's like, do everything only in this namespace, I think that can come in a later step as a convenience versus like things like limiting the tool to only work on flex volume or only on entry. It is going to be much more difficult for users. So I would on that topic, I would suggest considering those ideas.
Okay, yeah, I will write those. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I did write that note down also in the meeting minutes, but I wanted to talk about it as well, since it's hard to capture in just a couple short sentences.
Sure. Thanks. And just one more thing that I wanted to add was in Rook, we want to deprecate the support for flex volumes, and after some time, we might not want the tool, and we might not require it after say couple of releases. So keeping it outside will also be helpful for multiple users when even Rook does not need it anymore.
Right. Well, and right now in the Rook 1.8, the next release, I mean, there will be no more flex driver. We'll want to support the tool for some time, like for a year or two or whatever. But yeah, agreed. It's a different ship cycle.
Just
Okay.
just a heads up. Last thing to add, we need more RBAC for the toolbox to run that tools. Yeah, those are the changes we will require on the Rook side.
RBAC for the tool to run in the toolbox.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
I would suggest having the tool be a job that we can run with its own RBAC definition.
Right. Its own service account. And
Yeah, so that we can create the RBAC, run the tool, and then remove that RBAC once the administrator is done running the tool.
Yes.
we have like a toolbox direct, right? Like that we can have one more pod with a different service account, like toolbox migrate or something like that. The base will be the same image, so different service account and RBACs in a different file. Anyone can delete it after the migration.
Yes, that's definitely a good approach, and we can follow that.
Yeah, if we could include these details in the design doc, then we'll, I think getting into the details, it's too hard to understand all those in the meeting.
Okay, yeah, I will write those.
Mhm. All right, I think we're almost to the top of the hour. There was one more action item, which remains there for a long time since I haven't done anything about it, to resolve the FOSSA license scanning, which you're right, Blaine, we would also need for NFS and Cassandra separately now. So someday I'll get to that one. Or we'll find someone who can help with that.
Yeah,
but
I don't think it's terribly high
Very good.
priority.
Right. Okay, and with that, going once, going twice. Thanks everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
See you.
See you.